about Tecolote Canyon. And for those of you that don't know, Shirley and the lady from Eloise Battle fought for Tecolote Canyon. And you're now very involved with the Friends of Tecolote.
Yes.
And I think we're going to introduce people as it's their turn. Does that sound good with everybody?
Are you doing throw knots or something?
Yeah. Good. Perfect. Actually, no, we're going to do it this way. Bill Swain, and Bill is a longtime Clairemonter. We have Mr. Walter Anderson, and I have not met Al yet. Nice to meet you. And I have not met Sam. Nice to meet you. So, So we're going to start it off. We have a lot to cover today. Shirley, I'm going to turn this over to you if you'd like to talk about Tecolote.
Absolutely. Tecolote Canyon, open space park. We have these trail maps. There's a few on the table. A lot of history here. Have some of you been like to the nature center, into the canyon? Yeah, that's wonderful. It's a challenge. The project to redo the sewers in the canyon is underway, so the contractors have equipment and supplies there, and it will be some months before that lower part of the canyon is open again for people to walk in. I got involved in this in March of 1972 when I moved in next door to Eloise Battle. And some of you have met her. We have been to previous town council meetings. Eloise passed away on March 28th. There's a little bit of information on the table that Kathy has put together. When I moved in 1972, Eloise already had a group going called Citizens SOS, Save Open Space. The idea being to work together, a lot of people from Linda Vista too. It was a small army of people in 1972, 73, 74. Long story short, the city did decide it was a packed house hearing in July of 74, and what we had done was to go door to door around the whole perimeter of the canyon. And the purpose was to get people to sign their support for making this a park. And if you lived on the rim, there was an assessment as well as the property owner across the street. And we managed to get to almost 2,000 homes, this small army of people, and 2/3 of those people signed. And based on that, in July of, I guess my voice is too soft. In July of 1974, the council voted unanimously to make it a park. So it's Tecolote Canyon Natural Park. The first, you may have heard of Penasquitos, you may have heard of Mission Trails. We are not as big. We are about 1,000 acres altogether. Tecolote was the first, the trailblazer for the open space system in this city. It is an amazing ecology used by the colleges, Mesa College, USD, and San Diego Public Schools. Citizens SOS, Save Open Space, once the park was a reality, we didn't need SOS anymore. So that same bunch of people became Friends of Tecolote Canyon, which is a nonprofit for quite a few years until the Nature Center came into being in 1994, and then we've had rangers ever since, park rangers, wonderful staff of people. In the early years, our little group organized planting projects, taking out castor bean, terrible invasive plant, and putting in native plants. We did a lot of that. And once the team of rangers came in, they have taken over that. So what Friends of Tecolote Canyon does mostly, we get grant funding, and it's an education program. Children from area public schools, Field Elementary School kids have been involved from time to time. Come on field trips or nature walks. If any of you are familiar with Holmes Elementary, they have a little spot right adjacent to their property, and so our naturalists go to their school and take classes of kids. The field trips go to the Nature Center. We have a native plant garden, which you will be able to get to again once the lower part of the canyon is finished. The displays in the Nature Center, there's a lot of information there. Archaeology, geology, history, the native plants and animals. We have our several resident snakes, gopher snake and king snake. Eloise was the snake lady. She would take the snakes out for the school kids and visitors. Maybe some of you were there when she was doing that. We miss her terribly. As I mentioned, Friends of Tecolote Canyon is a nonprofit, and
Can you hold the microphone closer to you?
Friends of Tecolote Canyon is a nonprofit, and if we would be happy to receive any gifts in memory of Eloise to keep her legacy going. A real blessing to have her. She was such a gift to the effort to make this area a park, and we will keep on keeping on as best we can. Okay, I think that's enough for me. If you need a trail map, please help yourself. I also have these cards which have information on the back of them about Tecolote Nature Center and a little bit how to find us, our website. And it does announce the event the first Saturday in June, which has been going for so many years, but because of the construction, we will not have it this year. Hopefully, we can get back on that next year. And so when we're done here, if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer what I can.
And just one plug for the Nature Center is they have a database of the native plants, and it's a computer-based system that if you ever wanted to know what a plant is, what type of critter something is, it's amazing. So,
It's amazing. We have Eloise to thank for
Yes.
that collection.
yes. So thank you very much. All right, Al, I'm going to have you go next. And Al is going to be talking about the airport and early Clairemont in general.
Well, the things I've got to talk about today are kind of hit and miss all around San Diego, all around Clairemont. One of the first things that I've found within the last year or so, topographical maps are maps that are made by the U.S. Geological Survey, and the maps are made by surveyors going out and measuring the land. How big is this hill? When it goes up 10 feet, they put a marker in. They're fantastic. We all know one of the first guys who started making those maps. His name was George Washington. There is a map that is titled La Jolla, and you say we're not La Jolla, but we're all over La Jolla's map. So the series of La Jolla starts, the earliest one I found is 1940. There's another one, I believe, 43, then another one, 53, and one later than that. Somebody on the internet has taken each one of those topo maps, laid them one on top of the other, and let you move a little slide, and you gradually progress from the 1940 to the 1969. Unfortunately, that map has disappeared. I can't find it. If anybody finds it, please let us know. It's a tremendous way to see Clairemont grow. I brought one map here which shows the early days, and it does have part of the first shopping center. This, I think, was the 1953 one. One of the other things that came up at a meeting and when I was here was a discussion on the early airports. And there is a website that talks about early airports in all of Southern California. And the one that covers Clairemont has been updated within the last year or two. And a bunch of the information in there is something that has been long lost until it was published there. Some excellent maps and descriptions of them. Some of them, it's hard to believe they were ever here, but the one that runs down Clairemont Mesa Boulevard, the one that's at the foot of Cudahy Slough, down closer to the river. Those maps let you see in the early streets. They have some of the streets which were built, but they didn't quite get to the end of the street. Both of those are excellent sources for looking up something rather than Thomas Brothers. Thomas Brothers is a great one. I haven't given mine up yet. My cell phone will never replace my Thomas Brothers. I moved into Clairemont after spending 3 years in San Diego from 1955 to 1958. And I was doing my duty as an engineering duty officer for the U.S. Navy and spent my 3 years, very tough duty. I was stationed at Naval Station, Naval Repair Facility at 32nd Street, and had a tough time. I had to go to sea 12 times, one day at a time and never overnight. Pretty tough. That was commonly known as a cigarette run. They could not sell cigarettes when they were in port, so they'd take off and go to sea. When they got so many miles out there, they opened up the cigarette store. After everybody bought cigarettes, they came back in. That has nothing to do with Clairemont. When I moved into my house and to locate where I live, near Pep Boys, DMV, just a little ways from there, and I'm just off of Genesee. When I moved in 1958, Genesee was still a dirt road. They put the curbs in, but it was a dirt road for, I think, close to a year before they got around to paving it. I was in the Navy, and Navy Housing said, you got to get out of there, so I had to find a place, and I found a place that they were building. And it was a little group of houses known as, it'll come back in a minute. We shopped around and they had a group of houses that had display models. There were 6 display models that you could walk through and 6 salesmen there. to help you understand and sign on the bottom line, and you bought a house. We walked around and found one we liked. Boy, it was perfect. It actually looked down on Chateau. And we went in and signed up, says, we'll buy that one. About a month or so later, we went back and looked at it and discovered that we had bought the one next door. I went back in and talked to the salesman, and he said, well, you got two choices. We'll cancel that and you can buy another house. You have your choice. In your unit, there are only 4 houses left. And one backed on Genesee, that was a no-no. Another one was right on the corner, that was a no-no. So I ended up with the one that I want. Turned out to be about as perfect as you could get. It was a little higher on the hill. Sea breeze came in. Air conditioning from the ocean was a great place.
Do you remember the price?
$17,800. There was a slightly upgraded model. It was about $700 more, but I couldn't afford that. We signed the papers to buy the house, and they did all the paperwork, escrow and what have you. Went in to sign the contract, and we'd been told the interest rate would be 4.25%. We went in and sat down, and they handed us the paper. Oh, by the way, we had to up that to 4.5%. They'd filled out all the paperwork without telling us, but we bought it anyhow. The things that were pretty important to us back in those days, the Balboa ended at IHOP restaurant, where it's still there today, and there was a telephone pole in front of IHOP. But from there on, there was a dirt road. It hadn't been graded. It was just 2 tracks down there. And you get on that, wind around a little bit, and you'd end up in Linda Vista. And that was one of the ways to get out of Clairemont. And it was, the kids loved to go that way because referred to as a bunny trail, there were always bunnies along that trail. The other way out of Clairemont at that time was to let me get to work. Had to come up to Clairemont Mesa Boulevard down to Highway 395, which is Highway 15 today. And when you got there during the hours of work, there was a guy standing out in the middle of the highway with a sign, stopping traffic. No light, just one guy standing out there to let people cross over and get in across 395. When you worked at Convair, where I worked, and occasionally we had ups and downs and people would get laid off. And when you got laid off, you got a 395 badge. That meant you were out on the road. Where do we go from here? We talked about some of the things that have influenced growing up and raising a family. One of the best ones was a Boy Scout troop and also a group of Girl Scouts run by a man by the name of Roy Teal. And every one of the boys who went through that Boy Scout troop, 251, the Methodist Church, learned a whole lot. All of them learned to cook. And it was a great time. By the way, I got 3 Madison Warhawks, all mine. 2 boys and a girl.
Next up is Mr. Walter Anderson.
My parents bought their first house in Bay Park in 1942. And about that time, I think half of Bay Park was already built up and the other half was still vacant lots. But when he bought the house, he bought one lot on the other, to the right of the house, and he bought two lots on the left side. And then in 1952, he built a new house at the corner of Napier and Denver, which was one of the three lots that he bought. And when I was young in Bay Park, we traveled all over on our bikes mostly, and there was no restrictions on where we could go. We never really tried to go to Ticklelody. That was kind of far away. But anyway, us guys, there was a dump someplace up near Clairemont High School, and I've never found out where it was exactly. But we'd go up there once a month or so and try to look for wheels to make coasters to go down some of the hills, and that was our recreation. And it's a wonder somebody didn't get killed because they were pretty crude. But there was about 4 or 5 of us kids that built those things. And I belonged to Troop 76. Well, beginning before that, there was a Cub Pack 76. And then I was in that. And my mother was a den mother. And then they formed Troop 76. And they were able to get the Blodgetts. The Blodgetts had a stable on Galveston Street near Galveston Street, and I'll come up with that later. So anyway, the men of the troop helped convert it, clean it up, and we make it a little clubhouse for the Boy Scouts. And so we met there regularly for many, many years. And we also sold Christmas trees down by the fire station. And every year we sold a lot of Christmas trees. My dad had into the Christmas tree people because of the nursery. And so we would buy Christmas trees from Hofer Tree Company and set them up on stands down behind the fire station. The fire station was there. And we sold a lot of Christmas trees. And we sold enough Christmas trees that we afforded to take the troop to the Sierras. And they managed to, one of the members had a bus, and he let us use the bus, and a volunteer bus driver took us up to Kings Canyon, in the Mammoth area, and Devil's Post Piles. And we camped out there for about a week or 10 days, and then came home. We did that 2 different years. And for us, the Boy Scouts, we were like 12 to 15 years old. That was a trip of a lifetime, really. There's a picture floating around someplace of aerial view of Bay Park, and it kind of focuses on the house that my dad bought, and also the 2 vacant lots next door. And it's very clear. It's kind of a neat picture. My dad came to San Diego in 1922, and I thank every day my dad for coming out here, because he's from Nebraska, and my mother was from Nebraska too. But he was 22 years old when he came out here in his Model T Ford, and he went to work for a nursery up in Mission Hills. Not Mission Hills Nursery, but a different one. And that's how he got interested in the nursery business. And in 1928, he started his own nursery at the foot of Warren Street. And that's about all I have to say about Bay Park for right now, and Clairemont too.
Next up, I was going to have Dick Taylor.
Well, I don't think I know too many of you people around here. Is this thing working?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a Ticklelody man, along with Shirley. Eloise Battle that we just lost this year. It's big on parks and stuff down there. I don't know exactly what you'd like to hear. I've been here since 1961. I married a girl in Linda Vista and right across Tecolote Canyon. We came down one Sunday in 1961 in July, and we bought a house in Fireside Park, where Shirley and I are still living. And I don't know if I see anybody else here in the Tamarisk Drive area, but that's up from the driving range down to the golf course. Far end, I could watch the people hit the balls down there. They probably hit them better than I did. I was a fighter pilot out here at Miramar, and I made not any noise here, but I made a little noise over the La Jolla area a lot. Some of you people shouldn't get too much problem here in Clairemont. How people ever bought a house in the area just north up in here. What's the name of the area just north there? It's gotten big. University City. Any fool that would buy a house there. That's where our airplanes fly around that thing. We had to turn and do lots of things nice to make it comfortable for them. However, we try not to make it too uncomfortable for us. I'll talk to you a little bit about Tecolote Canyon area, Fireside Park. I believe that Gene I lost 2 years ago today, as a matter of fact. And we picked this house when we came down, come up Via Bello and went down, and it was all dirt roads. There were 4 model homes built, 4 model homes. I believe only one of them was a four bedroom, the all rest were 3. The 4 bedrooms were $20,200. Our house was $19,500. I picked the one we got because it had the biggest backyard on Tecolote Canyon. I'm from Oklahoma, so when I'm sitting in my backyard, I look out across towards Linda Vista, all of Tecolote down there, all the way to the golf course, and almost down towards Mesa College. I'm in the country out there. I'm right at home. This Okie is right at home. And lived in Oklahoma and Baja, Oklahoma, which is Texas. That's where all the bullshippers live, and some of that wore off and got to me. So some of the things I tell you might not be perfectly true, but it's the best that I want to tell you. Maybe how's that? I could probably answer any questions that you have on anything where you might be living and tell you about it. I'm going to tell you that the area we went to, there was nothing but dirt out there. And there was a great, big, deep canyon on about the second house down to the west of us. And they filled that all in, compacted it down, and I figured the first time it rained, it'd all wash right on out of there. Well, that house has been built into a 2-story house, very nice house. They have a swimming pool there. They started the swimming pool, and then later on somebody built a 2-story house. We added on to our house when we got back from time in Washington, D.C. at the Pentagon, and everybody had a bedroom. My daughter Kathy's in the back room over there, and she could probably answer a lot of questions about that area. I know that I was fairly popular in the Fireside Park area. I'd pick up all the kids. In those days, I had a pickup, and you could carry people around in a pickup. They just sat in the back of the pickup. They didn't have to strap in and all that stuff. And I'd say, hey, it's DQ time. What's that, DQ time? Well, if you don't know what DQ time is, you can't go. What's DQ? Dairy Queen, there you go. Well, we had a Dairy Queen up here that later on, I'd take people down there. That was maybe 6 people in there. Kathy remembers riding in that, I know a lot. And I remember seeing the softball fields come in across the street from me. A guy named Tom Fisk and his wife are there. She is now gone. He lives in home in Escondido. Just talked to him yesterday, as a matter of fact. He was also a pilot, flew the A3 Sky Raider. Both of us were carrier pilots. I started on the Coral Sea, which is the same ship as the Midway down here. It's just a different number, one number off. The Midway, of course, got made bigger, and they said it's Japan for about 6 years straight, so we didn't have to fly out there and take a squadron to be in a fighting position in Japan. We just put that carrier there for about 6 years. So that's why the Midway is here probably, because it was really important over there. I'm talking about Cold War, you know. Somebody here was talking about probably involved with Atlas missiles, I believe, right? Atlas missiles were flown right out of Miramar. You know, we'd have a great big C-141, and they would put a missile in the back of that thing, and about every week or every 2 weeks, they'd fly one of those things out of there on Sunday night sometime. And maybe nobody was supposed to see them when they go or something like that. We were still trying to be a little secretive on our missions from Russia. My looking at Russia was to see when there were 4-engine Bison airplanes flying over my carriers. They could fly any place they wanted to because they had real long range. First carrier I was on was the Coral Sea. The next one was the Ticonderoga. Then after that, I went to the Hancock, which is this ship right here. And I spent my first flying was as a photo pilot, flying an F-8 Crusader. It was the first 1,000-mile-an-hour airplane that the U.S. had, and the Navy had it. And then about 6 months later, I'll be with you in just a second, F-4 came out, and it got to be the fastest airplane. Question?
I was wondering if you were aware of the area north of Balboa and along 805 that was called Rosedale Field, and used to be a bombing field. And we are still...
Say the name of that field again.
Rosedale, the Army Corps of Engineers has a flyer people can get online, because we still dig up unexploded bombs in that area, if you live in that area.
Well, Miramar Field it used to belong to the Marines. And it was just a couple of years before that they moved out, and I moved into the photographic squadron there. And I flew same airplane right here. Instead of being a fighter, it had cameras in it. Remember the U-2 and stuff like that? Some people may remember the U-2. It was a high-flying airplane. They finally shot one down, but it had to come down from its altitude before it got hit because they didn't have anything that could go that high. Back to your deal there was an Hourglass Field was a place that I called it. I don't know, I'm not familiar with that particular name. On the west side of Miramar Road out there was a big field just before that big tallest hill out there. And that was called it was kind of shaped like an hourglass. They were made out of dirt and probably asphalt and gravel and stuff like that. The guy next door to me used to fly his model airplanes off of that strip, and that's what it was used for a lot. Now it's all built. All that Mira Mesa area has all been built, and that was all just nothing out there. In fact, the nice road, when you drive down 52 and you bump and bump and bump and bump, the reason you're bumping and bumping and bumping and bump, that was a dump. That's where the dump started over there. Then they moved it a little bit farther to the north. And it's pretty much covered up, and I guess they're still dumping there. They might find another area, but some of those big hills you see there has got a lot of trash in them, I tell you that. And I can remember hauling stuff out there, and they would let you take it out there free. Later on, you had to wear a hard hat to go out there. Is that the Hourglass Field you're talking about?
No, this is Rosedale Field, was used in World War II as a bombing range in that neighborhood of north of Balboa and along 805. And if you do a Google search, you can see their safety flyer telling you what to do. If you
Okay, take me down to 395. How far down are we going?
Up to Clairemont Mesa.
Okay, we're at Clairemont Mesa.
So between Balboa, Clairemont Mesa, and west of 805.
It wasn't there when I was there. I remember I said I came here in 1960, I guess. 1960, and it wasn't here. In fact, Miramar was as big as it is right now, but it only had 2 great big hangars because there was not too many squadrons around there. Later on, it got to be pretty big. Top Gun came in there, and we had filled it up pretty much. But I'm not familiar with that particular road. I know that I kept up with the aviation on where Lindbergh flew his first airplane down there across from the airport, or from the post office. The old post office at Midway, going back towards the 5, right across from there, that was a field there, and that's where Lindbergh actually took Spirit of St. Louis off from us, right there in that area. And across the street from that was, can't think of the guy that was a big flyer in the early times. That's where they built a lot of his airplane, was right across the street. It's still there. It's an electronic company now. I can't think of what the name of it is anymore.
1 minute. 1 minute left.
Oh, okay. Is there, now the housing was cheaper. Our first rent was $134. That included your rent, your interest, and all the taxes and stuff like that. That's pretty good. Well, it used to cost almost that much to rent a house. The first road that I really saw around here is Clairemont Mesa Boulevard that went all the way around like that. And I-2, Balboa stopped when it just got to that big canyon through there. And we would, on dry days, we'd drive down through there and come back up. And to go from my house over to my wife's house in Linda Vista, you could drive through that one, or you'd have to go up to Clairemont Mesa Boulevard and then come all the way down to Linda Vista that way, or go down through Montgomery, what's the name of that street? Marina Boulevard? Yeah, it's right there by the railroad track. It was straight down.
Highway 1.
The highway, it's a street.
Pacific Highway? Pacific Highway?
Claremont Mesa, just before you go into Mission Bay, there's a street that goes straight south.
Marina.
No, it's not a Claremont Drive. It's
Marina?
Marina. There we go. Marina. That was the area. That's where you had to drive. So we were pretty isolated here in southern Claremont. The houses that you're looking at right now on Clairemont Mesa Boulevard are looking pretty dang good. But I want you to know those were built when I was here. And they've cleaned them all up and they look very, very nice. They were square houses at one time. They're all square houses. But now they're pretty nice looking deals. I won't take any more of your time.
Thank you. Sam? You're up next.
Stand up. My name's Sam Ames. I was born San Diego, 1946. My dad was born in the bedroom I'm sleeping in 1917. His name was Stephen Ames. His dad was, I think, born in Lakeside. And his dad was born in El Rosario, and his dad was born in Connecticut. So somehow we got around here, around the Horn, came to Baja, and then worked our way up to San Diego. I would like to say something about Tecolote. My great-uncle, Julian Jerome Ames, had a farm down there in Tecolote, and my grandmother, who lived up on, which is now Field Street, up on top of the hill above Clairemont Drive, was to take her cow down there, walk her cow down there to get serviced by his bull. And in those days, Bay Park was mainly farms. Just a very good land down there, I think. The dirt down there was really good. A lot of farmers down there. And my dad worked at the Ambert Dairy, which is on Inglewood Street, which now that's the oldest house down there. It's like an old Victorian down there. I think the church owns it. Well, that was the Ambert Dairy. They had a dairy. And my dad was up on the hill, and they would come and get him about 4 in the morning to go down and help milk the cows. And he mentioned that Mr. Amberts, a Swede, would be able to carry 2 of those big milk cans in one hand.
Oh.
So he'd carry them. And he was a big guy, and he had a couple of sons. And just a little something about the Ambert family. During Prohibition, they used to have big parties down in Tecolote Canyon. Big parties. Of course, a lot of wine, because they made wine there at the farm. And so they'd have these big shindigs down in Tecolote Canyon. Well, one of the times his son, Ernest, found an old siren off an old car. And he puts a siren on his car, an old Model T or something, heads down there blowing a siren. Well, that panicked everybody. They grabbed the barrels, they dumped all the liquor. And old man Ambert was so mad at him. He was really mad at him. Well, that was something. So that's a little something about Tecolote. What's related to that is my dad worked for a prohibition officer who lived in Bay Park named Charles Cass. And he was a local prohibition officer during prohibition. And they really hated him around here because he was so good. They tried to get rid of him. And he would bust up stills all over the place. And I don't know if he ever busted up the Amberts still or not. Anyhow, so I grew up on Field Street. It was, when I was a kid, it was the end of the farm, basically. We had old wagons, we had 2 or 3 cows. I used to go with my grandmother when I was little. We'd go up on the hill where, just a little south of Baker Street, in that area, and she'd take the cow to feed. And I remember going with her. I remember a couple of times we'd be out there and I'd see her throwing rocks in the bushes. Well, she was killing rattlesnakes. She didn't like to have them around the cows, so she would heave these rocks until she killed a snake, which is probably illegal now, anyway. So anyway, I go up there with a cow. We come down, and in those days, our house was built in 1911. And a little bit later than that, the Dillons, I don't know if you've heard of the Dillon family, they were up on the top of Chicago Street. They had a very nice piece of property there, and I think he was Commodore Dillon or something. He was a retired Navy man. They had a family, and I used to play with Mary Dillon, used to come down to the farm, and she was just a little older than I was, but they had a lot of kids. So that was our neighbor. And then I remember my dad, speaking of bunnies, we actually ate more rabbit than we did chicken at one time. He would, probably not kosher, but he would ride on the fender, the wheel fender of the car. In those days you could sit on the fender. And my mother would drive, and they'd drive up through the mesa there, and the spotlights would hit the rabbits. Pop, there you go, there's dinner. And so we ate a lot of rabbit. He worked at, eventually, after working with WPA, my dad, he worked on building Del Mar, the racetrack. He worked on the La Jolla Cove, building some of those steps and things. And he eventually got a job at Consolidated Voltee, which became Convair. So he worked down there from 1938 to almost 1980, almost, and working just building aircraft. And so he passed away in 2003, but he had a lot more stories than I did. He would tell me a few stories, but when you're a kid, you don't usually prod your elders for stories. Grandma's talking again, going outside. My grandmother, her name was Soila. She was actually Soila Marron, who was raised on the Agua Hedionda Rancho up in Oceanside. So, she had quite a life growing up on a rancho. Her father was Juan Maria Marron. Anyway, this particular branding iron, we had a cow named Betty, and she had this brand on her. This is the Serrano brand from the Palma Rancho. So this brand, I have a couple of brands, but I don't think they're actually authentic. This one is. And I really like Betty. She was a nice cow. I mean, really well-tempered. She may have stepped on me a couple of times, but she was really sweet. And I was really sad when they had to let her go. She couldn't give milk anymore, so what do? You either eat her or you sell her, so they sold her. What I wanted to mention, we did have horses there. But the one mystery that's still a mystery to me, my dad always mentioned the hermit. And there was a hermit that lived up on the mesa. I'm thinking in around Shawnee or Baker Street. My grandmother used to go up there to take him food and things. He was German. His name was Mr. Northrup. And he lived in a shack, one-room shack. Apparently he had just moved there to get away from everything. And he used to come down to our house, and we didn't have electricity until about 1943. And he used to come and clean the chimneys of the oil lamps. And he would read the paper. He just loved to sit there and read the paper. And I have his microscope. This is the only thing I have left of him. When he passed, he didn't pass away. He sort of disappeared. He had written to the brother, and jokingly said, you know, there was a rattlesnake under my bed, ha ha, you know, I hope I'll make it. Well, they got concerned about him, naturally. And my dad said one day a big car pulls up. You could see it way off. And they take him for a little ride. He wants to go for a ride. And that was the last they saw of him. So, any questions about that? That's what they did. They just come and take you away. So this is a microscope that my dad salvaged. It's an old one that he salvaged from his house before his cousin burned it down. Well, my dad was in there, by the way. And so he got the wood stove, which of course didn't burn, and this microscope is all the evidence I have that he existed. They were talking about the muddy roads. In those days, if you went up Gesner to Chicago, you had to go up to by the Dillons, turn, and come down to our house. If it was raining, that was all clay. You couldn't make it up. So again, you had to go Linda Vista, go all the way around, on top of Mesa, Clairemont Mesa, then come down along the Mesa. Because there was no way you could get. My dad tried to do it. He could double clutch, and I don't know if you know what that means. But anyway, he could double clutch, and he could kind of get it up and then get it back into first and get going up that, slipping and sliding up that hill. But usually, if we were in the good car, which was a 51 Buick, really nice Roadmaster, we'd have to go all the way around. And it took a while to get home. And let's see, yeah, there was an army camp, but it was up on the Mesa there. My dad used to go up there during the war. Okay, and they'd go up there, and the guys would give him rations and stuff, and they'd play cards. And he was going home, he'd ride his horse up there. And he's coming home on his horse, and they had a huge spotlight. You know, so they were one that you would shine into the sky to look for airplanes. They shined it on my dad, and the horse took off. He was a good horseman. No, he didn't get hurt or anything. So yeah, we had horses at our place. We boarded horses there for up until the 70s, and then we got sewer line, which was wow. You know, we didn't have a septic tank anymore. We had gotten the electricity came in through the canyon from the north through telephone poles to our house, where it ended. And so things got really modern after 1970. 1970, I got married and left home to go to school and live a life, and then came back to San Diego about 17 years ago. So I think that's enough.
When Kathy and Lynn were telling me about this program and how they wanted to find people that lived in Clairemont for a long time, I said, you gotta get Sam Ames. Do you understand? His father was born in a house up by the Serbian church in 1917 in Clairemont. It was called Marina back then. So I mean, you can tell he's a pretty interesting guy. Okay, I didn't know what I was going to talk about today because I knew I'd be speaking here. And I was asked by the San Diego, for the Journal of San Diego History, I was Santa Claus in Balboa Park from 2002 until just last year. Ho, ho, ho. And I was writing an article about being Santa in the park. And in doing research, I discovered in 1908, a guy named Lewis J. Wild was Santa Claus to the newspaper boys of San Diego. How many of you ever heard of Lewis J. Wild? That's what I thought. And I don't think you've ever heard this story before, because I asked Shirley, I said, were you aware of what I'm going to tell you about? Nope, she hadn't heard of that. It's funny how, we've talked so much about Tecolote Canyon today. Louis J. Wild became the mayor of San Diego from 1917 to 1920. He ran against George Marston. You all know the name Marston. He was a great civic leader in San Diego. Have you heard of the campaign? It was geraniums versus smoke tax. Wild was the industrialist. Marston wanted to keep San Diego beautiful. While he's mayor of San Diego, this guy had already been indicted for embezzlement. He came up with a great plan. He was going to make San Diegans rich. He was going to make this a prosperous city. What was he going to do? He was going to find oil in San Diego. What did he do? He sold $120,000 worth of stock. $120,000 worth. How many of you know where the oil was? There wasn't any oil. This is Tecolote Canyon. This picture was taken in 1940, roughly where the pro shop is down at, I still call it Sam Sneed. It's now Tecolote. This was the derrick. You can see how large it was. The company was Tecolote Dome Oil Company, and it was well number 5, and it was dry. So what happens is the stockholders say, what happened to our money? They were able to come up with $48,000 worth of expenditures. What happened to the rest? This is San Diego, right? We just lost a former mayor, didn't we? San Diego has a history of having some shaky mayors, okay? So Wild was a shaky mayor. Now, here's an opportunity for all of you. And I made up these little stocks for chairs. If you will donate $5 to Clairemont Town Council, you can get 100 shares of worthless oil stock in Clairemont. And nobody knows about this, right, Shirley? Okay. Next, I got a few more minutes. When I was a little kid, well, I don't know if some of you knew I wrote an article or column in the Clairemont Times, and an article I wrote back in 2015. It was about Clairemont in January of 1954, and the quad had just gone in the village for you younger folks. And this is one of the things I wrote. Donald Leon Unger, Clairemont's first baby of the new year, received a wide variety of gifts from local merchants. His proud father, Harry Unger, was a sailor stationed at Naval Training Center. Typical of the times, the infant's mother was simply identified as Mrs. Harry Unger. Okay? As a little kid, living in Milwaukee, my mother found a 6-leaf clover. She had her name in the paper, the Milwaukee Sentinel. We were so proud of my mom. I was just learning how to read. I was a first grader. I said, that's not your name. She was identified as Mrs. William Smythe. My mother got polio in 1949. She didn't get it. Mrs. William Smythe got it. Mary Fry, you probably don't recognize the name, but you know the name Fry. Skip Fry, Mike Fry, Donna Fry. This is the membership from 1968-69 of the Clairemont Women's Club. And I don't have my glasses on. Clairemont Women's Club. Women's Club. Do women have names? Yes, you've only been able to use your real name for 50 years. That's something, huh? Yeah, so let's hear it for the women. Eloise Battle was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful woman. I can't tell you what a great woman she was and what she did for not just Tecolote Canyon, but for San Diego. So I nominated her for the Women's Hall of Fame. Does that sound like she belongs there? Yeah. I think Shirley belongs there too. They blew me off because women don't know that there were women that came before them. They think women, they were churning butter and raising babies, 25 babies. But there have been impressive women for all the time. And they, the older ladies, they don't want to respect it. And so I was talking with Lynn, and Lynn said, yeah, the Clairemont Town Council should champion the cause of Eloise and of Shirley. They changed the name of Lindbergh Schweitzer. I wrote an article about that. And they're putting in a park there. It was supposed to be a nature park. I don't think it ever went in. I said, you got to name that after Eloise Battle. Didn't happen. Okay, I'll finish up here. I understand, in the paper that they had a picture of Clairemont High School and the chieftains. They want to do away with that, right? I'm not going to say anything other than I'd like to make a suggestion. I think that if they're not going to be the chieftains, that Clairemont, their mascot should be the Tecolotes. Tecolote means owl. Tecolote Canyon runs from down in the valley all the way up to North Clairemont. It's part of when they renamed the Lindbergh Schweitzer, the Clairemont Canyon, there's no canyon here. And then I went and did some research. Yeah, Tecolote went all the way up Balboa and Lindbergh, whatever the street is there, almost to 805, and they filled it all in, which is what that Eloise and Shirley were trying. They didn't want to fill in the canyon. They didn't want a lot of housing in there, but it's called Boyd Canyon, and so they changed the name to Clairemont Canyons Academy. So, I'm not going to make much comment on that stuff, but I would like to suggest that the Clairemont team be called Tecolotes. If they're they call them the Tecos. Down in Mexico, there's a soccer team, the Tecos. Have I run out of time? I'm done. Okay, that's it.
Thank you. So I'd actually like to open it up to questions. But first, I have a question for all of you. You mentioned throwing all the kids in the back of the truck and heading over to DQ. The dump at Clairemont High School looking for, where was your favorite hangout that can still be around, cannot be around? I know like Silver, you were young, so Silver Spigot was out of the question. But what was your favorite hangout when you were growing up?
This was after I turned 21, of course. And I'm going up San Diego State College, didn't have much money. Monday nights at the Quad Room, back in the early 60s, Monday nights, they had pizza, cheese pizza for 39 cents, a whole pizza. These girls said, what? And if you had pepperoni, it was 59 cents. And big pitchers of Schlitz for 59 cents. And I could afford that. So that was the Quad Room in the early 60s on Monday nights. And by the way, Walt and I have been friends since 1955. We went to Mission Bay together. These young ladies are freshmen. They're going to be sophomores next year. I can tell they're good friends. That's how long we've been friends, since 1955. So keep your good friends for high school.
Bill reminded me that this doesn't relate to Bay Park or Clairemont, but when we were young, first married, we'd go over by Crystal Pier, and there was a kind of a divey restaurant over there called Maynard's, and they served spaghetti out of the back door for 25 cents.
Look at the way they react. What?
It's because yesterday
And
we
it'd sit on the seawall and have our spaghetti. There's a couple of guys there shaking their head. They remember Maynard's. As far as me hanging out, a little bit of Tecolote, and after I got married, I had a couple of kids. Somebody built a rudimentary racetrack down at Tecolote, dirt. It's about a quarter of a mile past the information center. And we used to take go-karts and little mini bikes, and the kids would ride around in that racetrack down there. And that's about all I can say for now.
One thing for the Madison Warhawks. Where I grew up, women were allowed to vote in 1890, Wyoming. And that's the only place where women got to grow up and vote. We also had the first lady governor in Wyoming. So you gals got a lot of road ahead of you. Some good astronauts too.
I didn't grow up in Clairemont. It was 1963 when my family got here, and it's because Miramar was my husband's last duty station. But Tecolote Canyon has a big part of my life. The Finger Canyon that Mr. Taylor and I live on is a beautiful little spot, and under the oak trees and sycamore trees, there's a small stream that runs through there. It's a quiet, peaceful place to hang out. I highly recommend it. There's a lot of places in the canyon. You were just talking about the size of it. Let me point out the northern boundary of Tecolote Canyon Natural Park is right where the grass ends behind these buildings. And that northern part is also a beautiful spot because the houses are set back. And walking down there, and you feel like the city is gone. It's a steep walk down from here, unfortunately. But there's also an entrance opposite Chateau Drive that you can get in there, and that's a little more easily done. If you have grandkids or neighbors with kids and can take them, one of the best things that our Friends of Tecolote Canyon program is to get kids into the canyon. We have classes of kids who plant native plants and come back. They have a vested interest in this beautiful open space area. The more kids that we can get to experience that, the better off this park will be.
And there's lots of flowers there right now. Yeah. Right now, this last week, it's great on flowers.
Yeah.
I spent my youth, that is preteen, down the canyon in a bush, just hanging out there. We made forts. We made great forts. You just kind of had a little cow path. There were a lot of cow paths in the canyon. If the canyon, if it would have been circular, the cows would have had two legs shorter than the other because they would always go around counterclockwise. But these cow paths went up and down the canyon, and you just follow them. You get down in the canyon, and we'd get down there. We'd dig out trapdoor spider nests, and sometimes we'd go up to the model homes that they were building in Clairemont because they had these homes that were furnished. And you'd slip up through the canyon, get in there, and you'd just play house. You get in there, they had fake food in the refrigerator and fake telephone. And you have a great time. Anybody was coming, you'd slip down the canyon again. And my preteens, and early teenagers, I'd probably be up in the pepper tree. I had a hammock up there. And I'd just get up in the pepper tree and just hang out there. I never went very far from home. And after that, I was going to college, and I'd spent all my time. And I was an art professor, so I spent all my time in the studios working and just taking classes, drawing, painting, that kind of thing. So after I was about 17, I was rarely home. I was just off.
my hangouts. Fighter pilot. Any place that sold beer, I'd be there. We had on Clairemont Mesa Boulevard. It started where I told you down in San Diego Bay. Comes on up from there. Off of 5, made a big arc around here. And that was about the main road that was built here in Clairemont. I haven't heard anybody talk too much about Clairemont Mesa. It's tore up right now pretty bad, but that was the main road that went around there. When I came here, like I said, in 61, you could only go a few blocks off of Clairemont Mesa Boulevard, and there wouldn't be any houses, just a very few. And they start making complexes like Fireside Park, where we live here on Tecolote Canyon. One of the things, I like everything about San Diego. I was a big seller of San Diego when I was in Washington, D.C. Every Thanksgiving, Kathy can tell you that I would stand up and I'd say, okay, you kids, you all thank the Lord that your folks raised you in San Diego. He came back to San Diego. Why people ever leave here, I don't know. I love it. I'm here 9 years old now, and I'm enjoying the heck out of it. And it's like living in the country where we live here next to Shirley, Eloise, place like that.
Thank you. Does anybody have questions? Does anybody have any questions for any of the panelists? Okay. Oh, Cindy. So as you guys know, we have some younger visitors who are also hanging out in Clairemont and studying Clairemont history. A dragon? A drive-in. Did Clairemont ever have a drive-in? Two view?
On 163, 395.
163. I knew the one in
North of
PV.
395, just past Clairemont Mesa Boulevard.
Called the Two View, yeah.
There was one called the Two View down by 163 between 163 and 805? Not yet. By Denny's?
It's just to the left. Just to the left of 395 north of Clairemont Mesa Boulevard. There used to also be a great big mound there, big theater. They piled a big thing of dirt and then they piled all the concrete on top of it, took all the dirt out of it, and that was their dome for the Starlight Theater.
Did anyone participate with the Convair recreation programs that they had at the time? And I mean, it was a real community out there with all the different employees. So I'm just letting out the horse field, recreation complex. I'm just curious if any of you worked there.
That was our recreation park, and it was land that was donated by the company. Last I heard, they had 64 different clubs and organizations. They had pinochle, they had sports car, they had automobile overhaul, they had basketball, they had you name it. And it was funded by the money that came out of the coffee machines. All the money that they made on the coffee machines went to that club. And sailing club. Sailing club had 19 sailing boats. When they left in 1994, they said, well, you guys in the sailing club, we don't want them, you can have them. That sailing club is still in business, still sails, you can join the club, and they still sail those old boats they keep them going. They're good boats, they're safe boats. So it was a great time.
Okay, so I'm Cindy Jensen Elliott. I am a teacher at Madison High School. How many Warhawks do we have here in the room? Wonderful. That's right. Nice to see. We have done a project this year with my 9th grade students. I will say I'm also a Clairemont resident. I've been here for 25 years. And I raised my kids in Clairemont. And we have done a project documenting not the history, but the present state of Clairemont. So my students interviewed business owners in Clairemont. They interviewed people that are part of our Madison community, and then they wrote about them and created comic books about their lives. And so we brought some of these to share. We will go ahead and after we leave, we can't leave these behind, but we will be giving you guys a QR code later. So if you want to purchase a comic book later on your own, you can do that, and the money goes to our class of 2028, of whom I brought 4 members of that class. So for example, in this book with a cover that's by Aramis, who's one of our students here, each student created a comic about, first they wrote and then they created a comic about one of the people who has a business here in Clairemont. So Clairemont has become such a diverse community. We have such a beautiful range of businesses that are here, and we wanted to show support for those businesses and show support for our diverse communities here in Clairemont. So we're so happy to be part of this community, and we really are happy to be part of this 75th anniversary celebration today. So thank you so much for having us. And I would like to bring my students up. Oh, and these are studies, but my senior students were not able to come. But they've done studies of different aspects of Clairemont that they're curious about. They want to make Clairemont Town Council welcoming to youth. They would like to be able to have a voice here in the Town Council. And so we look forward to being part of what you all are doing and having our young people be able to share their voice here in Clairemont. So thank you so much.
It looks like we're kind of winding down. Now, don't forget, I'm selling worthless stock, $5, and you get 100 shares of worthless stock from Clairemont. Thank you.